Ruby must have been a really special child to be given the parents that she was.
We have breaking news out of Utah. A Cache County couple has been arrested on suspicion of murdering their 18-month-old baby girl. And this isn't just any couple. This is a couple directly related to Chad Daybell. Yeah, the same Chad Daybell married to Lori Daybell. The same Chad Daybell who was on death row for the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. That Chad Daybell. My name is Lauren Matthias, and this is Hidden True Crime, where we don't just talk about the headlines. We dig into the psychology, the patterns, and the humanity behind the horror. We uncover what's hidden, and in today's story, we do just that. There is so much to unpack, so stick with me. On March 19th, 2025, Carrie Murray called 911 in Nibley, Utah about her 18-month-old daughter, Ruby, who she claimed was dead in her crib. As Carrie spoke to 911, the dispatcher tried to get Carrie to start life-saving measures, but Carrie, who is a nurse, responded that she was a nurse. She explained it, and that Ruby was, quote, beyond help. She explained that she knew this because she was a nurse, and that is how she knew life-saving measures would not work. Well, when paramedics arrived at the house, they found 18-month-old Ruby in long sleeve footed pajamas and a sleep sack. Her bed was filled with old food, mostly waffles, trash, and sippy cups. Old food and trash were also found under her mattress. It seemed to first responders that there was more to this than a case of a child who simply stopped breathing. Because not only was Ruby's crib full of these old used items and those waffle particles tucked underneath the mattress, her crib was also covered by a mesh canopy, the ones that prevent toddlers from climbing out. And investigators said her room was noticeably warmer than any other room in the house and had a space heater running in it. Unfortunately, her mother was right. Ruby was not able to be saved. In fact, paramedics told police that it seemed as if rigor mortis had set in before they had even arrived. It was clear that something was not right and an investigation was needed. But before we get into that investigation, I want to go over the family background a little bit. 18-month-old Ruby was born to parents Mitchell and Carrie on September 24th, 2023. She had one older brother, who was 4, named Lucas. By the looks of it, the family lived in a modest home in Nibley, Utah in Cache County. It's just outside of Logan, Utah, and near Utah State University. Carrie was a nurse at Intermountain Health, and Mitchell worked from home. And according to online profiles, he was a small business owner who showcased his woodwork and custom Christmas ornaments on Etsy and on Instagram. From the outside, they looked like many other average young families with 2 children, working, raising kids, and attending church services regularly, like Chad and Lori Daybell once were, and I guess Chad and Lori Daybell claim to still be, but the Murrays are devout members of the LDS faith. Although I do want to point out that at this time, I have not found any indication of similar extreme beliefs. So what is the connection then to Chad Daybell? Well, it goes a little bit like this. Alma and Flora Chestnut are Chad Daybell's grandparents. Alma and Flora had 5 daughters, and one of those daughters is Sheila Chestnut Daybell, who is Chad's mother. And another daughter, the sister of Chad's mom, Sheila, is Vicky Chestnut Murray, which makes Vicky Chestnut Murray Chad Daybell's aunt. So Chad's aunt, Vicky Murray, is the grandmother of Mitchell Murray and the great-grandmother of baby Ruby Murray. Back to the investigation. As law enforcement continued to investigate what happened to baby Ruby, online, her parents showed what looked to be deep mourning and grief, and they did not publicly discuss any details as to what was unfolding behind the scenes. In a Facebook post written just 7 days after baby Ruby died, her father, Mitchell, wrote, quote, "The absolute outpouring of love that Carrie, Lucas, and I have received this week has been incredible. To all those that have given time, money, or even words, know that every part of it has been felt and appreciated. I'm going to miss my little princess, but I know that she is in Heavenly Father's arms," end quote.
Ruby must have been this really special child to be given the parents that she was. She also must have been a special child because she didn't need to go through some of the experiences that the rest of us do. That makes me I must have been non-special because I'm still here at 65.
But behind closed doors, the investigation was indeed continuing. Detectives combed through hours of surveillance footage from the final 4 days of baby Ruby's life, which was available to them due to a baby monitor and other home surveillance footage. And the picture it painted is a disturbing and heart-wrenching one. The footage shows that in the 96 hours leading up to Ruby's death, again, that's 4 full days, 96 hours, her diaper was changed only 6 times. She was out of her crib for a total of 6 hours and 15 minutes in those 96 hours. And she was with another person for only 49 minutes and 15 seconds in 4 days, less than an hour of human contact. A further breakdown of those days went a little bit like this. March 14th, she was fed once, changed once, and her family spent a total of 36 minutes with her. March 15th, Ruby was out of her crib for less than 90 minutes. March 16th, Ruby spent 4 hours and 44 minutes outside of her crib, but was alone on her bedroom floor most of that time. And her family spent a total of 9 minutes and 42 seconds interacting with her that day. March 17th, Ruby only spent a total of 5 minutes out of her crib, which included 2 diaper changes. March 18th, Ruby was never taken out of her crib. Her diaper was not changed, and she was only seen for 49 seconds total by members of her family. Interviews with Mitchell and Carrie, little Ruby's parents, gave even more insight into what was happening. Both parents admitted that Ruby spent the majority of time in her crib and that they would play loud rock and pop music such as Green Day and Fall Out Boys for her. Yes, Green Day and Fall Out Boy were little Ruby's daily and nightly lullabies. And we're not talking about any of their slower hits like Wake Me Up When September Ends and What a Catch Donnie, which are still songs that I would never choose over Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But for her short funeral slideshow that I've viewed, which is mostly infant photographs of a crying or non-smiling baby, the slideshow is accompanied by Fall Out Boy's song, Sugar, We're Going Down. As for food, they claim they fed her 3 times a day in her crib. Carrie said all 3 of those meals were waffles and that she got a sippy cup once in the morning and once in the evening. The reason she was fed in her crib, according to her mom, Carrie, was that they, quote, were not table people, end quote. And Ruby wasn't a fan of people feeding her. Carrie told police that she had last physically seen baby Ruby, her little girl, around 3 a.m. on the 17th when she changed her and gave her a snack. She went to work that day, came home, but did not see Ruby. The next morning, she claimed she heard Ruby crying at 4 a.m., but then she got up to get ready for work and left Mitchell to care for Ruby. The next time she saw Ruby was the morning of the 19th at around 10 a.m. when she found Ruby dead in her crib. So according to her timeline, she herself had not seen Ruby for around 55 hours leading up to her death. However, she claimed that Mitchell had physically seen Ruby 16 hours before she had found Ruby. So that would mean Mitchell last saw Ruby at 6 p.m. on the 18th, and not a single person checked on, changed, fed, or did anything to ensure Ruby's well-being for 16 hours until she was found dead in her crib. And that is just according to Carrie. We don't actually know if Mitchell was the one who saw Ruby that day, but we do know, according to police, that whoever saw her only saw her for 49 seconds total, and she was not fed or changed that entire day. According to detectives, Ruby, quote, did not exhibit normal sleeping patterns for a child and did not seem to differentiate night from day. It was also observed that there was loud rock or pop music played through the Amazon Alexa in Ruby's room that appeared to interfere with her ability to sleep at times, end quote. So I guess this confirms that Fall Out Boy and Green Day aren't the best songs for soothing a baby. Although in her second interview, though, Carrie claimed that Ruby needed that music to sleep. And honestly, in reading this, I wondered two things. Was the music used as torture? Or was it used as a way to drown out any crying from Ruby so they didn't have to deal with her? Carrie even said that she hadn't even looked at Ruby's baby monitor in months. Thankfully, though, they kept that monitor on so that it could help in the investigation with evidence, and hopefully this evidence helps in Ruby receiving justice. In the second interview, she also essentially said that the previous fall was worse, stating they spent even less time with her then. She was only bathed about once a week and had only ever had baby food once or twice in her life. At that point, she was mostly just eating waffles, quesadillas, and drinking out of her sippy cup. And worst of all, Carrie simply suggested that, quote, it was her time, end quote. Yeah, it was her time, when referring to Ruby's death, and said that while she usually feels guilt strongly about things, she feels no guilt over Ruby's death. In Mitchell's interview, he said he worked from home, and when he wasn't working, he was gaming on his PC. He described something called crib days for Ruby. Crib days, like, is that like what, a kennel day? Crib days? And that he said that happened 1 or 2 days a week, crib days. He said that those were days where he worked from home, where Ruby was left in her crib all day, and he checked on her 2 or 3 times during those crib days. He got emotional in his interview while admitting Ruby was too young to take care of herself and said, quote, you're supposed to spend as much time on her as you do on yourself, end quote. And I'd actually suggest that during these early months, you spend more time on your children than yourself. Many parents of infants realize that self-care goes out the window during those early months and years. Nonetheless, we'll keep going. The medical examiner performing Ruby's autopsy found that her cause of death was from complications arising from dehydration and malnutrition. At her time of death, she weighed 17 pounds. Ruby's medical records show that she was only in the 5th percentile for weight and that she was consistently considered below average for her weight, and her parents were talked to about upping her nutritional intake. From her 12-month checkup to the 2 follow-ups after, records showed that she had actually gained weight, but that she had lost weight between her last appointment and her death. And just this Wednesday, nearly 9 months after Ruby's death, her parents, Carrie and Mitchell, were arrested and booked this week, Wednesday, into the Cache County Jail on first-degree felony aggravated murder and second-degree felony aggravated child abuse. They are still awaiting arraignment, but there is a request to hold them without bail due to community risk, and they are believed to be a flight risk if released. The sheriff's office alleges that the Murrays showed, quote, a depraved indifference to human life and knowingly engaged in conduct that created a grave risk of death, thereby causing her death and failing to provide her with the appropriate nutrition and hydration, leading to her death from dehydration and undernutrition. The sheriff's office also released a statement that said there was, quote, a severe pattern of neglect leading up to the infant's death. And the Cache County Sheriff's Office extends its deepest and most heartfelt condolences to all individuals affected by this tragic case. Due to the ongoing nature of the legal process, the Cache County Sheriff's Office has no further information to release at this time, end quote. After reading about Ruby's case and her parents being arrested, I found and read her obituary. And I want to share a bit because a few things stood out to me in her obituary. And so let's just read it here together and talk about this. Quote, Ruby Marie Murray, a bright and cherished angel, passed away on March 19th, 2025 in Nibley, Utah, just short of the tender age of 18 months. She leaves behind a legacy of joy and love forever etched in the hearts of family and friends. Ruby was born on September 24th, 2023 to her beloved parents, Carrie Marie Stacy and Mitchell Chestnut Murray, and brought immeasurable happiness to their lives. She was a sweet and curious little one whose laughter and smile lit up every room. She loved When September Ends by Green Day as her lullaby. I'll pause and say at least that is one of the softer Green Day songs, and I'll continue. And she loved to dance to any music, especially Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco. I'm going to add here, I'm not sure how she'd dance in a sleep sack in her crib. Sleep sack, by the way, is not room for dancing. I'll continue. When she would escape, her obituary says, she could be found in the closet playing with mom's shoelaces, dragging them behind her. Ruby loved her soft blankets, her unicorn rattle, her little Stanley Cup toy, and cuddles from her daddy. In Ruby's short life, she had many adventures. She went to Disneyland in vitro and came out a rosy-cheeked princess. Started life 10 days early and went on a cruise to Ensenada and Cabo San Lucas. She had fun playing in Bear Lake as her dad pushed her around on an inflatable raft. She loved the Christmas lights and all of the sea creatures at the aquarium. Ruby adored Lucas, her brother, and would follow him everywhere. As fast as he could build a tower, she was there to take it down. Ruby had such a serious look on her face, but when she smiled, she would light up the room, especially when Daddy came to get her. End quote. Okay, so let's just start with that last line. When Daddy came to get her. You mean when you came to get her from her days alone in her crib? It's really just an interesting choice of wording. She would smile when Daddy came to get her. And the mention also of how she hardly smiled. She was always so serious. I wonder why. Except she would smile again when Daddy came to get her. I found the wording when she escaped that I emphasized an awful thing to say in her obituary, knowing what we know now. We know that Ruby was mostly kept in her crib. Her parents tell us that in a sleep sack. And for those that don't know, a sleep sack, it does not have feet. It's a sack that zips up to comfort babies and toddlers during the night as they transition them from swaddling. So she was essentially legless in a sleep sack, trapped in her crib, and at least according to her last few days, was mostly kept in her room alone when she wasn't in her crib. It also, in my opinion, shows not much of an attachment to her parents if she really was escaping her room during those moments and discovering shoelaces in a closet. And that shoelace was more of a comfort to her than human contact. I also noticed how much the obituary mentions Ruby's dad and how it really never mentions her mother, like at all. Also, who talks about what trips their baby takes when in vitro? It's odd. I certainly wouldn't want my in vitro trips listed in my obituary. And her obituary, the way I read it, confirms to me what her parents state in their police interviews. It also paints a picture of a very sad, short life. However, I do want to go back to one part of Carrie's interview and see what you think. Carrie mentions having no guilt and states, quote, "It was her time." Like essentially it was Ruby's time to go. But the exact quote is, "It was her time." Do you think that there's more to a belief system here? Maybe a page out of Chad Daybell's book that we haven't discovered yet or might learn about as we continue to follow this case? Or do you think Carrie saying that it was her daughter's time to go is simply a sort of a disassociative way to remove guilt? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. This case is far from over. Mitchell and Carrie Murray will face the charges against them, and the investigation will reveal even more about what really happened behind closed doors. But as we wait for those next steps, one truth already stands firm. Ruby mattered. Her life mattered, and the conditions she endured cannot be ignored, excused, or minimized. We'll keep digging, we'll keep asking the hard questions, and we'll keep following this case until the full story is laid out, because Ruby deserved so much more.